Okay, I guess we'll get started. Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Baker. I'll be running the meeting tonight, and we'll get right to business and call the meeting to order at 7:04. And first thing on the agenda is the minutes. I sent those out with the agenda. Hopefully you were able to take a look at them. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes? Thank you, Juliet. And second, Hillary, great, thank you. And are there any changes or notifications on the minutes that anybody needs to bring to our attention? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye, raise your hand. Okay, there we go. Okay, great. I'm going to give a president's report, but I think I'll skip over that. I have a few things to say and let the superintendent start us off tonight.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. Mike Cummings, Superintendent of Schools. It's always a few things to report, and I'm going to excuse myself after this to go to the RTM meeting, the RTM committee meeting, because we have a few things on that agenda I need to speak to. But if there's any questions, please, I'll take time before I leave to answer those. Let me give an update on the reopening. I think overall it was highly successful. We're working through issues. Each of the schools has had to make some adjustments, particularly the secondary schools with lunch schedules, the distribution of the barriers, lunch trays, those types of things, attendance, how they're taking attendance in the lunchrooms at the tables. Those are all things that the schools are working through. But each day has gotten better, and I think for the most part, it's been a very successful return to both students and staff. Talk about the level of excitement that they're seeing in the building with the kids all being back together. So that's all good. I think our concern, though, remains the ability to keep everybody safe and remain safe. At this point, we had 3 elementary classes go out on quarantine last week, and we have 2 today. We also had a number of students in the secondary level go on quarantine. So our quarantine numbers jumped up from about 140, I think, on Friday to 250 today. And that's really, we're not seeing any evidence of in-school transmission. We'll deal with that in a different way if we have to, if that shows up. But continuing concerns about people sending kids sick, or the activity outside of school, people being together, not following the mitigation procedures outside of school. That just continues to be our concern. So we're looking at possible ways to address that, but it's going to really, as it has all year, really come down to community vigilance on maintaining those measures. So before I talk about budget, I don't know if maybe there's any questions about reopening.
Yes, go ahead, Katie.
Mike, can I ask, I think this was after your meeting, I can't remember, the governor changed guidance on travel guidelines, and we had gotten some questions if the district was going to be either giving further guidance or changing their guidance on travel ahead of spring break.
Yeah, I've had a couple conversations with Jill Mitchell and Sam clearing the health department. I think our concern, we haven't made a decision at this point. I don't think the governor's, I'm looking over at my desk there because I had a kind of a printout of his changes. I don't know, did that change take place yet? Or is it one of the ones coming up?
Yeah, I have to look at the date. I can't remember if it was before or after our spring break.
Yeah, I think it's before, but I don't think it's happened yet. But I will tell you that one of the questions we're having, and I'm talking with superintendents last week as well, is it when the schools would actually adopt those changes. There is some consideration to hold off until after April break. I think certainly April break's not that far away. So the health data in the community will certainly play a part in that decision.
So like a stay tuned.
Yes, definitely a stay tuned.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, good question. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Caitlin.
Hey, Mike, those students who you said may be coming to school sick and therefore the quarantine situations with the classrooms are happening, are those students waiting for test results and their parents are still sending them? I know we had an issue with that previously. Is that part of what's still happening?
No, I think there's been a couple cases where, to be fair to people, there's asymptomatic cases have come to school. We did have one case where a student was told to stay home by the parents and took off anyway after parents went to work. So we've had that type of thing happen. It's relative. I think most of the cases though are the asymptomatic variety. We're not seeing, particularly at the elementary level, we're not seeing kids or parents deliberately sending their kids in when they're ill. You know, there's honest mistakes that people are making. And that's always been the problem with the asymptomatic cases.
Okay, just wanted to make sure it wasn't not even necessarily that someone would do it on purpose, but that it was an educational opportunity that needed to happen about, waiting for test results or anything.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, thanks.
Mike, I understand that now that the kids are back in school, that the reopening committee is disbanded. Is that the case?
Well, it's right now, it's been, we're in suspension. I think that we had some conversation about when we would bring it back. We didn't want to disband it because, I want to always strive to be optimistic, but we don't know. We're full-time return now and we're hoping we can stay that way. But if we had to go back into hybrid or do something, we would want to keep the committee active to make those changes or to assist in those changes.
Okay. Any other questions on reopening? Okay, Mike, on the budget you wanted to talk on?
Yeah, please, just real quick, we present tomorrow night to the Board of Finance. I was hoping to give you a presentation or a preview of the PowerPoint. We added some slides to that, but I don't have it, so I'll make sure it's distributed to everybody tomorrow when it's completed. Essentially, we've got some concerns with the way our information is being presented on the town side, and so we wanted to respond to that. So the Board of Finance presentation will include slides from the Board of Selectmen presentation on March 2nd, but also we've added some additional slides to really kind of get at why our enrollment, or excuse me, our FTE, our number of salaried employees has gone up in the face of some declining enrollment. And a lot of that has to do with essentially two changes, and both of them are related to special education. And I want to take a moment here to be really clear on this. When we talk about staffing changes in response to special education, those are all the right things to do. In other words, I don't want anybody to walk away from this saying Mike was blaming special education for the fact that we've got more staff. This is a non-blame statement. This is just simply in response to two things. One, the level of the percentages of disabilities has increased over the past 10 years. In other words, the number of students who require more intensive services has increased. And that's one reason why we've seen an increase in staffing in special education. The other is, as you know, if you've been following budgets for a while, Ms. Leonardi and Mr. Mancusi since have really made a commitment to return outplay students to school, in district schools over the past 10 years. So the number of CLC classrooms has increased, the impact program at the high schools, and the irony, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I'll say it. The irony of this is to be criticized for increasing staff when really this is not only the right thing to do for students, but it's a cost-saving measure as well. So those are really the two drivers for the increase in the staffing. And we have a couple of slides that we can show tomorrow night, and again I will share with everybody that demonstrate that impact. So we do present to Board of Finance tomorrow, and then to the RTM on April 8th. I don't know if there's any questions on budget.
Any questions? Okay, I don't see any, Mike.
Okay, any other general questions?
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. There's no
Good
snow in
luck
the
at the
forecast, so
RTM.
hang in there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, everybody, good night. I'm gonna go to RTM now. Thanks
Bye-bye.
again.
All right. Thanks for everything, Mike.
Yep, take care now.
Okay, Trish, we're going to go to you. Trish from BOE.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're gonna hear Mickey Mouse in the background. I've got a child with a cold. So I think the most important thing, well, I don't even say most important thing. The big thing that came out of our last Board of Ed meeting was the Early Literacy Academy. That's brand new to our district. This was probably years in the making. But I'm really excited about it. This first year, this next school year will be its first year, and there will be 7 students in it in its infancy. They're working in collaboration with, I don't know if you know her, Margie Gillis from Literacy How. She phoned into our meeting to answer questions. And it's this first year is going to focus on students with early literacy that have dyslexia. And so it's not specifically like Orton Gillingham or Wilson reading. It's a work on phonics and decoding. They answered all of our questions, but I think we'll probably have another presentation, because what questions came out of there was, how are we teaching reading in the elementary, all 11 elementary schools? And some schools do a program out of Columbia University that is like Readers Writers Workshop. So I had a whole bunch of questions, because I was introduced to that when I taught middle school for 10 years. And I couldn't understand how this new program was going to be better or different. And basically I came away with that there's not a one size fits all when it comes to actually teaching reading to children. And our new Early Literacy Academy is for students who struggle in the beginning with those phonics. And so this will help with that. And then there was a whole debate versus structured versus unstructured literacy approach. I don't have a PhD in this stuff. I'm actually just learning. I'm taking my Foundations of Reading class, but that conversation went on for a long time. And we have 2 people from the district who came to help with the presentation, on top of Rob Mancusi, who was there to answer questions. I was really, really excited that during budget season, Mr. Mancusi had said that the program was going to be housed at the Giant Step property location where Walter Fitzgerald campus is going. And my argument during budget season is, why can't you treat this like a math academy? Why can't it be housed at one of our elementary schools? And this way the program could be integrated as part of the 7 students' daily classes, every single core class. They were very hesitant about it in budget season, but he came back to our meeting last week and he said that he's going that route. He didn't tell us which elementary school. I don't think they've made that decision yet. I don't think they know which 7 students. They're just committing now to the staffing. And outside of the staffing for this program, they're now going to, using Literacy How coaches, train 30 of our kindergarten teachers in this program. So why is that great? Well, this will help identify struggling readers in kindergarten. So once these kindergarten teachers get trained in this program, they will continue each year to continue the training. We've committed to that, and hopefully expanding it to 1st grade teachers and 2nd grade teachers. And I think that early identification of our struggling readers will really help us to deliver programs. I've never been so proud of our district for doing this and committing, to give that professional development. One of the questions, I was talking to one of the elementary principals today because I wanted more information. I don't really know so much about how we teach our elementary school students to read. I know what they do in middle school and high school with struggling readers. And they explained to me how important it is in elementary school for students to be writing consistently every day, reading what they're writing, editing, revising. And the more they do that in elementary school, the better that they'll get. So I have suggested to Mr. Cummings that they come back and do another presentation, because I think that that presentation was very technical, and it needed to be for this program, this early literacy program academy. But I think parents also want to hear what we're doing in our schools, because maybe one thing works in one elementary school and we can expand it. And that's a real commitment the board would have to take on too. Their curriculum is coming up for review, I believe, next year. And so we may have to invest in this in next year's budget. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not going to do it a ton of justice, but I'll try.
Go ahead, Amy.
Just for notes purposes, what's the name of the program that the Early Literacy Academy is using? What is it? Was it called? I missed it.
That's the name. Early Literacy Academy.
You had said that you had like a representative from somewhere come. I missed that. I was just trying
Literacy How.
Literacy House.
Yep.
Okay.
How, How.
Oh, how. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And the woman that created and runs Literacy How is Margie, Margi, I believe, Gillis. Aaron, you might know how to spell that because I don't.
It's IE at the end, Margie.
Thank you.
And if I could just say, it's not necessarily, she doesn't offer a program, she offers a framework in which then the program gets built. I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but I really respect her.
I know you were listening to the meeting, so you probably can fill in the gaps.
Okay, anything else, Trish?
Katie's got a question.
Oh, okay, sorry, Katie.
Tricia, can I just ask to kind of like weave it all in? That's obviously a new programmatic as well as new staffing.
So the program, I don't know if they're going to take from within the staffing that we already have, or if they're going to hire new staffing for the program.
But it wouldn't be a budget neutral new program. There's costs associated with it.
There is definitely cost associated with it.
So-
Hopefully they can use some of the ESSR funding. The only problem with that is it's only for 1 year, so that wouldn't be sustainable.
So create basically like a budget cliff fall. So any implications that COVID funds are being used for this would really not be a wise choice, right? Or possibly.
I mean, that's up to Doreen, right? She's really going to be able to put the line item where it needs to be to get us through the next year. However, the idea is to expand it the following year. So then that will become a problem. Not only will we have to cover what we have, but to expand it would cost a lot more money.
Just so people, I think it's really complicated in budget season to kind of weave together these big numbers and then these great enhancements that we're hearing about and how they all kind of sit together. So when we hear about a reduction could affect a program like the Early Literacy Academy.
And it's the harder part too, is if you've never read the budget book before, it's not always itemized like early literacy program. Here's X, Y, and Z, what we're going to spend. It's under personnel, blank, there's a number. Supplies, blank, there's a number. They break it down for us during the meeting, but if you're not watching the meeting, you don't know that, like the Math Academy, I can't remember what that was, but everybody kept asking what the number was. And thankfully they had broken that down for us. But when we say there's $2 million or, X amount of money taken from our budget, we have to find specific places to put it. When Mike crafts and Doreen crafts the budget with the staff, they just give us line items like personnel.
Yeah. No, thank you. It's good to clarify. I think it's important for people to see that the budget is made up of so much more than just looking at the budget book. It's intimidating. I mean, I've been doing this, 3 years now? When you hear these awesome programs, I think it's always important to keep informing parents about those, because that's what our budget, ultimately does for our students, is these kind of new enhancements, which are wonderful and very, very much needed.
And every year our budget book gets better at what they look at the questions we asked the year before and they anticipate them in the next year. And we win all sorts of awards for our budget, the way it's presented compared to other districts, but yet there's still like hundreds of questions that we ask every year.
No, you guys do a wonderful job, really. Watching the BOE budget process, as much as I'm now in it. I really recommend it to anybody who hasn't, because it really does inform all your decision making. Thanks, Trisha. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, anything else for Trish? Thank you very much.
No problem.
Did you have a question, Mary, or were you just, no, okay. Okay, thanks, Trish. Okay, I have a few things here. First off is we sent out all the checks to all the elementary schools who were part of the photo contract that we hold for you guys. This is the second year that we have kind of varied off of the model that we've been following for a few years, where we've been returning this photo vendor money back to the schools where it originated. And I was one of these people who really didn't understand where PTA council funding came from when I came on, and I had a lot of people asking the same question. And for those of you who were like me, is PTA council is funded by the commissions that are earned off of the photo vendor contracts with the elementary schools. Those, we sign the contracts, we get a good deal because we represent a lot of people, and then we were using them in the past for grants and other projects like that. And I think that surprised a lot of people, because there seemed to be some question about, well, how come it's only the elementary schools that fund the PTA council, and why don't the middle schools and why don't the high schools chip in on this, on these funds? And they have photo vendor contracts as well. And now with our new contract, we had one of our elementary schools, Jennings, has decided to make a contract with their own photo vendor. A couple of moms from that school who own a photo business have contracted with them. So they are no longer part of the contribution to PTA council budget. So I did some inquiring, and I was looking at other PTA councils in the state. And I went, one of the guys that's at the Connecticut board meeting, Brian from Greenwich PTA Council, seemed very knowledgeable, and they're about the same size as we are. And I started asking him a few questions on how they fund their PTA council, and they said they're just a council. They have $200 dues per school, and they have 15 schools, and they operate on a $3,000 budget. And they are basically people who facilitate. They work with all the different schools. Like if a middle school wants to, if the middle schools want to bring in an author, they just put the middle schools together, give them a space to talk, or they also have a very robust committee system. They have 15 different committees in the PTA council. And actually our bylaws state that each of the delegates, because I also got this question as well, is what does a PTA delegate do when people were signing up to become a PTA delegate? And one of the requirements is that you serve on one of the PTA council committees. So we are not a governing body. We do not make policy at PTA council. We work on behest of all the PTAs in town, and we are a Congress of PTAs. And so when in order for us to operate properly, we need to have all of you, all the PTAs working together. So, I know a lot of people thought that a PTA council meeting or a PTA council rep would be like a Board of Ed rep or a budget rep, where you just send somebody to take notes and report back to the council. Well, it's actually the exact opposite of that. You are part of the PTA council, and you are there to bring up your concerns with other PTAs in town and see if together we can work out a solution. So looking at what he had said, I'm willing to explore, and if anybody wants to join me on different alternatives on how we can set up a different model if that's something you want to do. Everybody got their checks, all the elementary schools got their checks back, and that's hopefully to help offset some shortfalls you might have had in fundraising this year, or maybe give you a running start next year when you're getting going. But if we kind of figure that, especially in this time and maybe in the future, the PTAs know better how to spend their money than we do, and it's not necessarily our job or our charge to do that. So that's something that I'd like to explore with everybody and see if that would work better for you. And we, in my discussions with other members of our board and other PTA presidents, if there's if we wanted to work on a budget, let's say ahead of time, if there's something that we all want to do together, like if all the elementary schools wanted to continue with FAE, they could have us withhold that money for them if they wanted to, or just, chip in the way that they've been doing it. There's all different options on the table for that. But I do think it's time that we explore this. I don't believe that PTA council should be in the business of doing grants, because it started out to be try to be a device to make all the PTAs more equitable, but it really hasn't worked out that way. The grants, you could follow somebody who is very good at writing grants or has the time to research programs and grants and apply for grants. They would tend to get all the grant money, whereas other schools where they didn't have that kind of person available to them wouldn't. So it really wasn't something that they could that made them equitable with each other. So so those are my thoughts on that. Any questions on what I said? So please email me with any suggestions or any questions, and if anybody wants to get together and help with this, I'd be most appreciative of that. Yes, Rainey.
I have a question in regards to how do you see that play out? Because kind of intuitively, I think right now that the schools that sit in the kind of higher economic neighborhoods, the parents there buy bigger picture packages, so their kickback is a lot bigger than maybe in other elementary schools in lesser advantaged economic areas. Do you think that they will still see a better return and more money than they've been seeing over the last few years, or do you think we really are setting ourselves up for a bit of unequal things happening across our town?
Well, first of all, I think that pictures have been in decline across the board already everywhere. So it might not be something that is the towns that are buying the pictures. There's really not that much of a difference in commissions across that are being made right now. And given the choice, we've had some, we talked about this at the beginning of the year when we chose between vendors. The people who, the vendor that offered us the best price, the best package, more people left for a better quality. And so it's, they were given, and there were also kickbacks offered from Life Touch, but people felt more comfortable. Some people felt more comfortable with Coffee Pond, and we had some switches. So I don't, and it turns out that the people, when we did it the other way with grants, it turns out that the people from the wealthier part of town had more people who were able to take the time to research and apply for the grants than the busy people, the two family working parents that had hard time finding volunteers. It was hard for them to apply for grants. So the equity was going backwards. It wasn't working the way it was supposed to. And so, and then there was the whole discussion on how come, the middle schools and the high schools aren't part of our contract as well, where a lot of the elementary funding was going there. Now, I always felt that we had we were more interested in the student, not the school, and following that student through to the end of their until 12th grade. But it still comes down to the fact that I've seen the checks from the high schools, and they're a pretty substantial check as well. So I don't, that might be a discussion with their headmaster or principal to see how that money is spent on those levels as well.
Right,
so,
and that is not, at least at board, that doesn't sit with PTA. That sits with the school.
Right, and that's a question that that might need to be asked. Or where, even if it doesn't, where does that money go? Maybe there's places that that the PTA would be able to use those kind of funds or be directed that way. So, I mean, those are all good discussions, and that's, that's what we're wrestling with right now. But there's also, boondoggles. We invested in this $10,000 in this website email thing that we had an argument with somebody, and that money just went up in smoke. I don't think that PTA councils really have the authority to distribute these funds. I don't see it in our charge. It's, Mary said to me once, because where there's money, there's power, and we are not in a position of power. We are here at your pleasure. So that's how I look at it. So, it's looking and trying to design a model that fits within that. But, like I said, this is just my opinion. This will have to be a decision of all the PTAs. So, any other questions? Okay, so we'll get on with the, oh, by the way, so everybody who's got their checks, they can cash them. It's all yours. People were getting the checks and wondering if they could cash them. So I think they came at the right time.
But the checks were sent to the, Steve, the checks were sent directly to the schools?
Yeah, we sent, the Life Touch sent them directly to the schools, and then we sent out the ones that came in from Coffee Pond. So you should get them no matter where you get them. See, yeah, checks were sent to the schools. Jane just messaged me.
Steve,
Okay.
I'll just mention, I would tell all the PTA presidents to double check like their means of communications with their office. I know everything's a little wonky right now with COVID, and ours came home in a child's backpack. So we caught it, but just for everyone, if you haven't gotten it or you haven't, just reach out to the office. I know it's been a long 2 weeks for them. So, things do happen. So it's always better to check in than just wait until May.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, so we're going to move on the agenda here. So that's Trish. Anna couldn't make it today, but as past president, she is in charge of the nominating committee. we have positions that are available all year, and we also need people to serve on the nominating committee. So if we have anybody who's interested in a position on PTA Council for next year, or would like to help on the nominating committee, if you're on the nominating committee, you can't be nominated for position, but we need both. So if you could just email me or Anna, that would be great. Let us know. Let's see here.
I don't want to be on the nominating committee, but if someone could send me, so don't put me on, don't secretary, write down that I'm doing that, because I'm not. But if someone could send me exactly what PTAC is and the, you know what I mean? Like what we're looking for, that would be great. Because I think what happens is they can't distinguish what this is versus what the PTA is. And I find that it's very informative, actually more informative than going to the PTA to learn about cyber business or whatever. You know, I think it's very informative. You feel a part of the school district in a unique way. So I think that it would be informative to share that with people that you're soliciting to join the group.
Yes, and I will add to that, since I brought up the fact that we might be changing things around. 2 years ago, there was a change in restructuring in the positions at PTA Council. And actually, once I came on, I had a brief description of some of the positions, and it was none of the positions that were described to me were what the people who took the jobs thought they were. So, I mean, that's something that we have to really look at as well, and decide what we are. But I will give you something at least to what I believe PTA Council is.
I also had this fun idea at Holland Hill. It was like a date night for like somebody from Holland Hill to come to PTAC with the representative and like get a beverage after. It didn't totally work because of COVID, but it could have worked. And I think it's a way of getting to sort of pitching it to the PTA is to say, it doesn't have to be the same person every meeting. It's a way of like sort of universally informing the community about the community that is our school district. So you don't have to call it a date night or going out for a beverage, but I think that, you know, it's fun to sort of, I solicited it that way at my PTA and it worked until COVID. But I think it's a way of getting a lot of people to come without a commitment. Yeah,
that's a great idea. And I had reminded me of something I talked with Brian from Greenwich about. He said, I asked him, how do you get so many volunteers on your committees? He said, well, we just have people with passion, and they, you know, we have, you know, let them do the things that they want to do. And, you know, we don't have to have so many standing committees because, you know, I've learned from my days as PTA president, you know, we had a Christmas fair that was great. John Convertito ran it, and he kept his whole garage filled with all the toys every year. And then when he left, we tried to keep it going, but it wasn't there. But then we had a daddy-daughters dance or something like that, and that just took off like crazy. So, you know, people find their passions and take off in a different way. So that, you know, I think that if we reduce the amount of standing committees, you know, to the ones that are very necessary, and allow us to be flexible for new ideas that might encourage people to have more, you know, be part of it. And you know, when
people
it comes,
might just want to see Mike, you know, like
right.
There's very few, look at, there are 18 of us, and you see Mike and you see Trish, and you're sitting here in a room. I mean, like the day COVID broke, I felt like I was in like the Secret Service room, like, you know, so I feel like once they come in, they might, you know, feel the access that they're granted is pretty phenomenal. So yeah.
And we are open to all PTA members. Our meeting is open. So, you know, I always say, please invite somebody if you know anybody who's interested. And also, you know, the only thing that when it comes down to voting privileges is that the president of the PTA has the voting privilege, and 2 people from each school, the delegate and the president. So that's the only restriction when it comes down to that, but everybody's invited. And, you know, we've had some great speakers here, especially, you know, if you just like one speaker, bring your whole PTA here. You know, that's what we're here for. So, okay, so let me see. Where was I? What we were talking about? Okay, so that was for the nominating committee, and we got an update on the reopening committee. Okay, Katie and Caitlin, VPs of advocacy.
Hi there. We're going to sound like a little bit of a, a repeat after Mr. Cummings, but it's an important time of year with budget. So the Board of Selectmen voted and passed their budget with the $2 million reduction. There was $500,000 of savings found after the Board of Education voted. So that is a nice little bit of relief during this, that will be incorporated back in the budget. As Mr. Cummings said, tomorrow evening, the Board of Finance will be deliberating on the Board of Education budget. So I encourage everyone to keep informing their population, asking for emails, public comment, whatever they can do to support the budget. And I know many of us are familiar, there's typically a public forum for the Board of Finance. In light of COVID, that is not taking place. So stay tuned. We have some ideas in the works for, maybe some ways to make some impact through maybe an email campaign or something to that effect. So stay tuned. We'll keep everyone informed about that. And the Board of Finance will vote on the budget on March 31st. And then just one more little thing. The Fairfield Foundation of Education reached out to PTAC to help reach out to their PTAs for volunteers. They are fundraising for grants for our public schools and need 1 or 2 volunteers from each school to deliver meals to their teachers and their staff at their homeschool buildings. I emailed that out to all the PTA presidents, but if anybody has any questions, please let me know and I can help get you more information. I think Caitlin's going to talk a little bit more about just ways to advocate and emailing and her insight on that.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. So in a minute, when I'm done talking, I'm going to put my email address in the chat box below just for anyone who doesn't have it. But if you want to reach out to me, and Katie, maybe you can do the same thing, put your email in there. If you have any questions about how to structure an email or what you should or shouldn't include if you're sending something to the Board of Finance, I would be happy to help you with that. In light of COVID still and us not being able to pack rooms full of people, our voices in writing, as we've said before, are super important. And also just educating the general folks around you. I was talking to a mom at the playground the other day, and she had no idea that it was budget season or that there were any discussions going on about budgets when it came to the education funding in town. So just striking up those conversations. Again, I know it makes things a little difficult, or things are a little more difficult with COVID, but we just have to figure out other creative ways to use our voices. And again, I want to say thank you to Katie for putting together an amazing rally with a really short turnaround a couple weekends ago. There were, I don't know, 40 or so of us who were out in front of the town hall, just showing our support for the Board of Selectmen to adopt the budget as the Board of Education had put forward. So again, it's different in COVID world, but those signs, the posters, honk if you support our schools, they worked and we got a little press coverage and it was really amazing. So thank you so much to Katie for putting in your hard work and doing that for us.
Yes, thanks for mentioning that, Caitlin. It was really kind of amazing how quickly that came together, and the support we got, and the horns beeping like crazy as they went by, and kids holding signs. It was in this time with the pandemic, you forget, you get to see some of your old people in person, with masks on, and get out and support a good cause. And so that was great. Thank you very much. And
yeah, just to add to what Caitlin said, I think in the rally, thank you, but really it was more everyone else who was emailing, like, what can we do? What can we do? And sometimes it really is just that of, I don't know, let's have a rally. And believe me, I'm one of those people, this is my first year in an advocacy role. Caitlin's been awesome at kind of, it's as easy as someone saying you can do it to do it in the moment. And I keep saying to people, the budget is really overwhelming. It's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of things that feel unfamiliar and overwhelming. And you feel like you don't have like the justification to speak to it. And I keep telling everyone, I was like, a budget really is a statement of our values as a community. And it can be as simple as saying, I support our schools, please support the budget. Like, that's it. So you don't have to go into, you know, this reduction and that reduction in enrollment. And yes, all those things are important, and please stay informed on them. We have an amazing Board of Education, and those meetings are so important. But as quick email, whatever you can do to support this budget is helpful. So don't feel like anything's too small right now. But that's my last one.
Can I just add something? I try very hard not to stay on Facebook, but I noticed someone brought up the question of class sizes, which is always one of the first things that people bring up when they want to cut our budget. They want us to have bigger class sizes. And we as a board have tried the least the 6 years that I've been on to maintain the class sizes, specifically the ones that we adhere to, not the ones that are in the teacher's contract. Those are higher numbers. But if this keeps getting brought up, they try to use this as a reason why, but you can just cut FTE and make bigger class sizes. That is not a good idea.
No,
No, yeah, so
thank
when
you.
you hear a lot of things, like there's a lot of disuse of these phrases like, you know, structural change, and we heard it at the last board meeting. I think there really needs to be a town-wide definition of what that means for education in this town. Does that mean structural change from the top down, bottom up, or does that mean in our classrooms? And that's something that we need to, as a community, really grapple with, because when you start trimming, you know, that term of we're scraping the icing off the cookies, this is not a budget filled with, you know, a lot of things. There are a few small enhancements, contractual obligations, and a huge hole from COVID last year. So I think it's really important for people to see what's in the budget, look at Mr. Cummings' presentation versus what's being presented to you, and see the discrepancy and really dig into the details of it and ask questions. Ask the Board of Finance questions, ask the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Ed, and then make your decisions from there. But yeah, there's a ton of information. I'm looking forward to the presentation tomorrow.
Thanks, Katie. Any questions for Katie or Caitlin? Okay, then, well, thank you very much. We'll move on and we'll go to, let's see, Rachel, do you want to address the RLA? And Katie,
Sure.
you can chime in if you like.
Sure, no problem.
It's all Rachel tonight.
Sorry, I missed last time. Excuse me. So RLA, even after the full return, only about 60 elementary students moved over. So our classes are, you know, virtually the same sizes. We've got all the same teachers, all that kind of stuff. So in light of that, and then there have been there's some schedule changes that are still being worked out. And I have lots and lots of questions, a million different ways for Mr. Cummings. And I reached out, and Mr. Cummings and his team are going to present to the RLA families via a big open PTA meeting on Thursday. In the middle of budget season. So it was very kind of him to give us his time. We've, after this, I'm going to be sending him all the questions that we've gathered. We decided to gather everything ahead of time. And I have about 60 questions for him. They're all very, you know, relevant questions about next year, the current schedule, and, you know, just some other things that are, you know, on people's minds. And then after this, our next focus is on teacher appreciation. I reached out to all of the PTAs previously and said, hey, I know teacher appreciation is not till May, or April rather. No, May this year, sorry. But I want to get planning, and because we can't raise funds ourselves, you know, would there be any funding out there? That was too vague. So what we did was we, as a group, came up with some ideas, and we are asking for each PTA at the elementary school level. Middle school is still, it will be, we're going to do something there, but it will be different. But at the elementary school level, we're asking for $150 from each PTA. And that will go to a gift card, which we've cleared with the Connecticut State PTA, because gift cards are normally not something you can do because of the 501c3 status. But we've cleared that. They're $20 gift cards. And then we're also going to do some spiritware for our teachers. And then we'll encourage a whole host of, no cost, thank you letters and all of that kind of stuff. We had a very successful virtual Valentine campaign that we ran, and all the teachers loved it and the students really enjoyed it. So we'll carry on with that. Other than that, we now have a mascot. We're about to get spiritware up and running. It's been an interesting experience working with each of the PTAs and hearing what you guys were talking about earlier about the equity amongst the PTAs. I would say it's been very eye-opening to realize how different each one is. And it's good in a lot of ways because they're catering to their own, school, and that is a unique little culture in itself. But I would love to see us doing a lot more sharing. So I think that, the ideas that you've thrown out there sound wonderful. And I would never have known all of that I know now had I not, taken on something like this and been in communications. And it's really cool. It can be challenging sometimes, but it's really cool. And our RLA teachers and staff, everybody has been so amazing and super happy to have, a newsletter, which is very fun. I've never done that before either. But to have all of that and have us feeling like a community as well has really been positive. So thank you all so much for helping us to get this all going.
Thank you, Rachel. Kate, do you want to add anything to that? I know that you are.
No, I mean, Rachel, I have to, as everyone I can't thank Rachel enough. She really, when we kind of scaffolded this RLA support, it was really a lot of hybrid parents doing it with the hopes that we could help support these students, and having Rachel step in and really facilitate. I mean, I feel like it was such a gift to me to be able to, talk to RLA parents, the RLA administration, RLA teachers. I say this in every RLA meeting, but I'm like, it's the instinct as us as a PTA. I'm like, those are my kids. I want those kids back. Those are our kids. And it's really created this sense of community for the entire district. And what a gift to move forward after COVID, to connect all of our schools continuously. So I would just encourage all the PTA presidents, like, we're going to share the RLA mascot on our Facebook page so that all the students can see it. We're really committed to that $150 to make sure the RLA staff is taken care of for Teacher Appreciation Week. I think the more we can work together, and especially I have to say too, this reopening, I know for my kids was tremendous, but I think we all have to be mindful that this, final reopening could have been really hard for a lot of our RLA kids and feeling even further isolated. So as PTAs, it's also our responsibility to be mindful of all of our students and, making sure that we can advocate for everybody, not just the ones that are right in front of us, because sometimes that's the hardest part of the game.
Thanks, Katie. And I think this is a good time to mention that fact that our PTA membership is down about a third from last year. So in order for us to be able to support places like RLA, we really need to, maybe make one last shot at your PTAs for some membership, and make sure that the people in RLA are joining their home schools as well. So those, we need that membership to carry on with the programs that we do. Okay. Thank you very much, Rachel. Yeah.
Rachel, what is the name of the mascot?
He is R2 Teach You.
R2 Teach You.
Trish, I'll email it to you. It's so cute.
It was really fun. I have kindergarten to 6th grade, And all of the kids liked it, and we're huge Star Wars fans, so they loved that that was the name that we ended up with. But it's really cute. And even my sixth graders like, okay, I'll wear a t-shirt. So it will be fun.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, Jen, from Fairfield Equity Project, would you like to let us know what's going on?
Yes, the equity groups continue to meet every single week. There's a little offshoot of the equity group, which is called Girl Talk, which is for any student in Ludlow, at Ludlow or Ward High School. And they also meet weekly with a staff member, which has been really nice and supportive. I wanted to mention, and Ryan, is Ryan still? Yeah. Ryan, do you mind putting this in the chat? Because I know you'll know how to find this, because of course I don't know how, but it's the GoFundMe. Do you know what I'm talking about? Thank you. So one of the programs that the equity groups are promoting right now is a GoFundMe for, it's called Hope for Human Rights Connecticut. And they're partnering with other schools around the state to raise money specifically for, I want to read it so I know exactly, Hands on Hartford, the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, the Center for Children's Advocacy, and the Connecticut Women's Education and Legal Fund. And they felt that this was another way of raising student voice to talk about these very important organizations. And so they partnered with other school districts around the state in order to create this GoFundMe campaign. So Riney, one of the students from the group, had emailed Riney and myself to see if we could let the PTAs know about this. So Riney, thank you for putting that in the chat. And I will say, you know, the equity groups have not, they are so passionate and fired up, and their commitment is unbelievable, as is the commitment of all the staff members that work with the students. And, you know, as always, I'm just overwhelmed with pride and just have to do a shout out to them as well. And I know the middle school committees are meeting as well. And it's truly is a source of pride for our district, in my opinion. I'm a little biased, but as you can imagine.
Thanks, Jen. Any questions for Jen? Yes, Trish.
I'm actually one of the faculty in Stratford that's on our equity group. And I'm wondering, the groups, I know there's even ones in middle school, right? Because I remember Molly McHugh coming and talking to us. Is there work being done with the members in the group to help educate other students in the building?
So you mean in the buildings that, other than the ones that actually attend the meetings?
Yes.
Okay. So a huge issue always was, how do we get the word out, right? And a big draw every year was our conference. So for example, when we had them in person, we had I think we had 80 students from Ward and 30 students from Ludlow actually attend the conference. So that was a huge way of helping educate this, you know, the students and get the word out and get interest in the group. I think the challenge is, how do we do this during COVID, right? Because another thing they did was an in-school conference where a lot of students attended. That was last December, pre-COVID. So I think post-COVID restrictions, you will see a lot more of that happening. And I think it's critical. I know they did, you know, they were doing fundraisers, they were having movie nights, they were hanging things around the building, they were doing bulletin boards. But unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, we are somewhat, you know, there's a big hindrance in order to get the word out. But I know they want to. I think it's just a matter of when they're given the green light to do stuff like that. Because it's very important. Something that the students did 4 years ago that was very powerful, they participated in professional development for the staff at both Ludlow and Ward. And I think that's something that they will be continuing to look to do in the future. But again, due to COVID, unfortunately, they can't do that. So it's not actually just for the students, but it was actually for the faculty as well, which was, I thought, very powerful and meaningful and really amplified student voice. But it's a great question. I think it's just a matter of time.
Thanks, Jen. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Margie, we'll see what you, if you, I know
Well,
you've been kind of given an impossible task, so I
well,
understand.
not really. I had an assist from Juliet. I had been trying to get Tom Chapin, as you all know, radio silence. So, but Juliet assist, I had tried to do double up and dance a while back, and they were moving areas, and I evidently had gotten in contact with somebody that was not helpful. And then Juliet got me in touch with the right person. However, some of my own life stuff, family illnesses and such, have gotten a bit in my way. But I do think it's up to us if we are interested. I know the school year is not totally over, but could be sooner than we think. We could maybe do something for Faye. I don't know how engaged the PTAs would be with double up and dance. Like they could do an online sort of dance for the elementary schools. I know Brian would be interested. They're very capable in that arena now because that's all they've been doing. So it's something I'm going to talk with their like manager Nicole about, and then I'll come back and pitch it to you guys. And then if we can put it up this year, great. If we can't, then we'll, reserve them for something next year. And I also looked into for next year, the improv group that we had talked about, and they're available and ready. And in fact, they might do the 5th grade. They might do something with Holland Hill outside for the 5th grade this year, if it's allowed. And they're really cool. But I think if I can pull it together, it's just a coordination of all the schools and trying to figure out what time online and, sort of the business of all that. I'm just not sure if everybody's capable of organizing that right now with me.
Well, let us know what you find out, and we can put it out there and see.
And I want to thank Juliet for helping. I think she's now gone, but she was here, reintroducing me to double up and dance, because they had sort of, everybody goes radio silent, but COVID is COVID. What can you do?
Right. Well, thanks, Mark. Any questions for Margie?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to just give some feedback. Stratfield actually hosted a virtual dance party with Double Up Dance about 2 weeks ago.
How'd it go?
It was fun. It was not as well received as we had hoped and anticipated with participation. But
okay.
The group, the 2 gentlemen that ran the show.
Yeah, I love them. Yeah.
Were pretty entertaining. There were a couple of technical glitches, but that's COVID life. We're all used to that.
Yeah.
I think it's worthwhile, especially because it is
local.
We got involved with them because of a Stratfield mom. Is that the Nicole person you were just referencing?
Nicole is a manager there. She's
I think she's a Stratfield mom. That's kind of how we got involved. But anyway, if there's anything we can do to help, let us know.
That's great. The thing is, whether or not it's going to be a part of the school day, if it would be, so it's not about enrollment, like it's not like a Friday night activity. It would be during, I think for Faye, it should take place during the day, would be my suggestion. But glitches in the computer is an issue, but we could figure that out too. But thank you, Erin, and I will. I appreciate it.
And I'm going to email you offline because I actually got some information. Anyway, long story short, I'm going to email you about this. Thanks.
Give me your phone number too. Okay, bye.
Thank you very much. Okay, Rainey.
Hi again. So first of all the elementary school representatives, thank you for all your enthusiasm, and I beg you to sustain that through middle and high school, because we have, and Steve can attest to that too, everybody always thinks PTA is such a big group at the high school level. We are like 5 people. We are the biggest fakers till you make it, because there's just everybody, they reach middle school and they go, oh, I've done so much for PTA. I've done my dues, I'm done. And then we wonder why things really don't happen, because I really feel kids need PTA in middle and high school too. So that's my pitch for everybody. And if anybody tells you, oh, PTA is not that important in middle and high school, it is so important. So that's that big pitch. And then we've got a bunch of events. parents in middle and high school have been receiving some postcards over the last month or so with information on vaping and a big survey on vaping. And so on the Fairfield Cares website is information on that. And it's still an issue, even though we are in a pandemic, and we need to make sure our kids put healthy things in their lungs, and that's air. And then there's also, an informational event happening this week on Thursday. It's on cannabis, and when you're a mom of a middle and high school, upper middle and high schooler, and they tell you, but mom, it's natural. It's good to know the facts. So I encourage everybody to register for this event that I put in the chat. It's on Thursday. It's a blunt conversation about cannabis, if you catch my drift. And then there's also, I'm putting a link with a bunch of other events that are happening. They're not necessarily organized by Fairfield Cares, but by our partner organizations around the region, especially on Darien. They tend to be able to spend a lot of money on high-powered people. So I always steal their events and advertise them too. As long as they're online, you can go anywhere. So there's always great events. So if you keep that link to basically handy, because that second one gets updated with new events as they come up. There's one that I really think is very helpful. There is a group in, I think they're based in New Canaan, is called Go Live Girl. And they're having an event April 14th for older kids. It's about the pervasive issue of college sexual assaults. And having, my second kid graduated college this year, it's all too real. So these are not fun topics, but these are topics that we need to kind of be mindful of. And then also I would like to say that Ward and Ludlow both have support groups going for their students, because we do have a lot of students that are apprehensive. They have, as ninth graders, never been in the school building, just like our kindergartners are now the first time in the school building. They have never been like with both their cohorts, and they are petrified speaking up in class, because now all of a sudden there's double the amount of people and they barely know the other people, and my God, what are they going to think of me? So there's support groups that are happening both at Ludlow and at Ward, and what we as parents can do is make our kids aware of them and help break down that stigma that I can't be seen going to support group. Again, what will people think of me? It's always the big worry. So I would recommend everybody speak about that. And then I would encourage everybody to kind of follow Fairfield Cares and subscribe to our newsletter, which you can through the town website. There's Mental Health Awareness Month coming up in May, and we've got a ton of stuff in the hopper. Nothing, no flyers to share yet, but we'll have a comedian come in May 19th who is half comedian, half psychiatrist. You don't want to have that brain, but he's really funny. His name is Matt Bellacci. Then we're going to have laughing yoga. One day we're going to have our youth committee is putting on a kind of a little wellness fair on the town green at the Sherman Green. And the state is sending their prevention van to that. And then we're also hoping to have like a Zumba class, like a lot of mental health friendly things that get the juices flowing and make people feel good. So all sprinkled throughout May. And then I'm in talks with Fairfield Center Stage Theater. And believe it or not, there is a comedy that deals with suicide prevention. And it's a one-man show, or one person, one actor show. And we are trying to see if we can collaborate on bringing that to Fairfield latest by September, which is Suicide Prevention Month. So there's lots of things. Oh, and Ward is having Liz Jurgensen, who is from Inside Counseling in Ridgefield. If some of you might have seen her before, she is really heartwarming and a no-nonsense prevention specialist. And she'll be speaking at Ward PTA's meeting on April 21st about growth after trauma. And that will be open to everybody in town too. I just sort of figure out, the technical links and whatever people need to connect to, but it's going to be open to everybody in town. So, and that's that update. And I'm looking at Mary Hope. There is also World Water Day happening. And so World Water Day is on March 22nd, and Connecticut is having a pretty neat event. So I'm putting that link in the chat as well. Let me make sure it gets to everybody. Here we go. So that's my final update. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Rainey. Anybody have any questions for Rainey? Okay, well, thank you again. Jane, do you have a treasurer's report? Are you there? I see you're blanking.
Sorry, I am here. I didn't want to show myself, I apologize. But very quick, we have money, as you mentioned, the checks from that's a copy fund. The copy fund checks from that's all the schools.
We're having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, that's okay. We have money. It's all good.
Okay. Any questions? You can send Jane an email if you have anything. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Is there anything anybody needs to bring up about anything? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming, and I will see you next month. Please email me with anything that you, any ideas you have, or any requests or concerns. And thanks again. So have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.